and spilled it all out to her, and finally get to see her face when I said it. But because I was in love and feeling fucking zappy and sentimental about the whole revelation, I needed it to be more private and special. So I held my fucking tongue and ate the rest of my cookies with a shit-eating grin plastered all over my face. Jez kept snickering at me and shaking his head, clearly amused by my euphoria. But even him being a prick couldn't ruin my mood. I walked about 10 steps behind my girl, glaring at anyone that even came fucking close to touching her. I could feel the tugging and the new foreign emotion, the love I had for her swell inside of me as I took my seat next to her and felt our electricity. It was a movie day. A really boring fucking movie about some parasite that I really didn't give a shit about. And as soon as Mr. Banner turned the lights off and started the movie, I slid my hand to my girl's side of lab table and snatched her hand up, bringing it below the table and rubbing it with my thumb. I could almost feel her smile in the dark as she gripped my hand back tightly. We spent the whole hour just rubbing and caressing each other's hand. There were multiple occasions when I almost fucking broke down and told her right then. All I would have to do is lean over the distance between us and whisper it in her ear. But I held myself back, just thinking of how much fucking better it would be when we were alone, and I could really show her, and she wouldn't have to hide her smile, and I could kiss her fucking senseless afterwards. And when the movie was over, I really didn't want to let go of her hand, but I fucking had to when he'd turned the lights on. We both slid our hands away from each other slowly and hesitantly. And when the bell rang, we packed our shit and got up to leave. I walked 10 steps behind her again, still glaring at any motherfucker that even got close enough to make her cringe, before I had to break away to go to my last class of the day. I spent the entire hour cooking up ways to tell her, wanting to make the moment so fucking right and perfect that I would finally get to see that look on her face I had been dying to see ever since Christmas morning. I was thinking that I could tell her after a kiss, or maybe even take her down to the gazebo to do it. The gazebo seemed right. It was the place where I first showed it to her, even if I didn't even fucking know at the time that it was love I was feeling. I was wondering if guys got girls presents or some shit when they told them that kind of thing. I was so fucking lost when it came down to it. I could probably make a girl come 6 ways to Sunday and scream my name. But when it came telling one I loved her, that shit was so far out of my league. By the end of the hour, I decided that it was just Bella, my girl. She probably wouldn't give a fuck how I told her, just as long as I did. And I definitely would. I was probably the first motherfucker in the parking lot at the end of school. Just so fucking anxious to have the day over with so I could tell my girl. Determined to catch one last glimpse of her before 10 came, I leaned against my car door and stared at the gym door to wait for her to appear. Oddly, instead of anyone coming out of the gym, faculty was going into it. I saw Mr. Banner go in and Miss Coe and then Mrs. Priestley the nurse. But no one was coming out. Figuring they maybe had a late basketball game or some shit, I stood by my door and waited while everyone else in the parking lot began pulling away to go home. I waited until the parking lot was empty, but no one was fucking coming out. I furrowed my brows and ran my fingers through my hair, wondering if maybe they all got dismissed early. It would explain the faculty that was steadily pouring in, and just as I was about to give up and leave, someone came out. Jez. And I was so fucking wrapped up in waiting for my girl that I didn't even fucking think to notice that he wasn't in the car. He stood by the doors to the gym running his fingers through his grubby hair, before he finally met my gaze. And the look on his face shocked me panic. I pushed myself off the door to my car as he came jogging over. As he ran closer to me in the parking lot, a million different scenarios were going through my head. Anthrax, school shootings, roof collapse, though it appears fine to me. Once he was finally in front of me, he hunched over panting, resting his palms on his knees. He looked up at me with a frantic expression. "It's Bella," he panted. My fucking eyes grew wide as his panic became mine. "What?" I asked frenziedly, fighting the urge to just run into that gym myself if he didn't fucking talk faster. He gasped in air and shook his head, still holding his knees. "Some fucking asshole in gym elbowed her by accident." or some shit, while they were playing basketball. He straightened up as realization hit me, but before I could ask more, Jasper's frantic gaze shifted to behind me. I followed it to see Esme's car speeding into the parking lot. She didn't even fucking park the car, just shot out of it and began running towards the gym, her caramel hair flying behind her into a blur. I turned back to Jazz with an urgent expression on my face. "Spit it the fuck out." He crossed his arms across his chest as it heaved, and spoke hurriedly. He elbowed her fucking hard, man. And she just fucking freaked out. She won't let anyone touch her, not even Alice. He gasped, and took in another gulp of air. "There's blood." And I didn't even fucking wait to hear anymore. I flew across the quad to the gym, running like my fucking life depended on it, and praying that my girl was okay. The cold rain slapped me in the face as I bounded across the grass and concrete. I had my arm extended to the door handle before I even fucking reached it. And as soon as I pulled the door open, I felt like I had been hit in the chest with a fucking sledgehammer. Screams. Fucking god-awful shrieks and subs resonating around the gym and right out the door. And I'd know those fucking subs and screams anywhere. My girl. As I darted into the gym, I could see them. A whole fucking crowd of people in the middle of the shiny gym floor. Some were students, still dressed out in their gym uniforms, and some were faculty, wearing frantic expressions at the sounds of Bella's agonized screams and sobs. And all of them were gathered around the source of the awful noises. I cringed and shuddered with each sound as I ran across the gym floor, nearly slipping as my wet boots contacted the shiny wood. But I didn't fucking stop. I kept going, until I reached the crowd. But I couldn't see past them. So I just started fucking shoving them all out of my way furiously, desperate to see her. Miss Cope grasped my leather jacket as I passed her, shouting at me, but I wasn't fucking listening to anything but those blood-curdling screams, so I pushed her off of me angrily. I could hear in her voice, she had been screaming for a long while. I was wondering how long ago all this shit happened as I shoved Stanley aside using extra unnecessary force to do so. And with one last shove of Mr. Birdie, I could finally see her. And the sight of her nearly brought me to my fucking knees. She was lying on the wooden floor in a fetal position, with her little knees tucked up to her forehead, still wearing her gym uniform and hoodie. And she was fucking shaking, and shuddering, and trembling, and just fucking vibrating the whole room with the hoarse screams that were ripping violently from her chest. This was no ordinary weird random emotional breakdown. This was fucking chaotic and violent, and just ripping her apart at her fucking seams. Esme was standing over her with the most heartbreaking and helpless expression on her tear-stained face. She reached a trembling hand down to stroke her hooded head. And she really fucking shouldn't have. Because it made the screaming and the shaking, and the sobbing impossibly worse. Esme snapped her hand back, as the look of hopelessness grew on her face into complete panic. She reached into her bag to fish something out and came out with a cell phone, and began talking on it. But I couldn't fucking hear anything going on around me except for my girl and all her fucking misery and agony. Poor Brandon was hunched over beside her, fucking crying along with her, and looking just as hopeless as her mother. Jazz broke through the crowd then, and went to her. But my attention was on the shaking form in front of me and even more importantly, the dark blood that was smeared on the wooden floor around her head. I was fucking frantically searching her to find where the bleeding was coming from, but her face was covered by her hair, and her head was covered by that goddamn hood. I began breathing deeply, trying to think straight against all the shrieks that were making me cringe and shudder, and almost making me fucking sob as I gripped my hair, and clenched my eyes closed. And then I just fucking knew what I had to do. She wouldn't even let her aunt or cousin touch her. But I was betting that I could. To hell with any secret. I would have given my fucking life to snap her out after that. I opened my eyes, and darted them to Jess, who was staring right back at me with a very fucking knowing look, as he held Brandon against his chest, and dropped her on the floor next to Bella. And for once I was so grateful he was so fucking knowing. Because I was going to be met with much resistance. With a determined breath, I began making my way to the center of the circle. And as I stepped forward, Mr. Bertie grabbed the back of my jacket and pulled me back, and I